Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Once upon a time, there was a kind-hearted queen who lived in a snow-white castle surrounded by an enchanted forest. While watching the flaky snowfall on a cold winter day, the queen was daydreaming. She could hear children playing in the snow outside. She opened the window to see them, and the wind whisked away the queen's favorite red handkerchief, and the handkerchief fell right on top of the snowman the children were building. They waved and thanked the kind-hearted queen.
I wish I had a daughter with skin as white as snow, cherry red lips, and a kind heart.
The months passed, and the dream of the kind-hearted queen came true. When 9 months later, her long-awaited wish came true, and the king and queen had a baby girl, the most beautiful in the world, and they named her Snow White. But their happiness did not last long. While Snow White was still a little girl, the queen passed away and became a star in the sky. A few years later, Snow White's father married a woman named Hela. The king was amazed by the beauty of the new queen, so he never realized that she was arrogant and proud. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
You, my queen, are indeed the fairest in the land.
No one can be more beautiful than me. Snow White grew into a beautiful young lady. Her father, the king, went on a long journey with his soldiers and gave his daughter a big hug before he left.
Don't be sad, Snow White. I'll be back.
One day, the vain, evil-hearted Queen Hela called her chamberlain Dunkov. Unveil my magic mirror, Dunkov. Chamberlain Dunkov was clumsy and pulled the cover down onto himself. You fool! Get out right now! The queen admired herself in the mirror and then said, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? The magic mirror answered her,
In this land, my queen, you are no longer fairest in the land. Snow White is the most beautiful.
Hela became very angry.
It can't be! No one can be more beautiful than me!
The whole castle seemed to shake with her anger, and her evil heart wanted to destroy the beauty of Snow White. She made a plan and ordered the royal huntsman to take Snow White into the enchanted woods and kill her.
And bring me back her heart.
Snow White trusted the royal huntsman and went with him into the woods. Along the way, she saw a wounded bird on the ground. And Snow White picked up the bird to help heal its wing. Behind her, the royal huntsman sneaked up on her and took out his bow to shoot Snow White. He drew back the bow and took aim, but he could see that the girl had a kind heart as she held the wounded bird, and he decided it was wrong to kill Snow White.
Snow White, she ordered me to take your life. I can't kill a person as good and kind as you.
Who wants to take my life?
It's Queen Hela. You must run away and hide.
The huntsman chose to trick the queen and killed a wild boar instead, so he could take the boar's heart to the queen and make Hela think that the princess was dead. The princess was terrified and ran through the dark woods. She struggled through sharp branches and bats in the night until she could run no further. She collapsed against a tree and fell asleep in the cold, dark, enchanted forest. When the huntsman reached the castle, he marched directly to the queen.
I have fulfilled your command.
Queen Hela took the box and examined the heart. She believed that Snow White was dead, and her evil laughter echoed through the castle. When the sun finally rose, Snow White woke up in the heart of the forest, and there before her was the cutest little house with a small garden gate and picket fence, tiny windows with a doorbell, and a round green door. She rang the bell, but no one answered, and when she reached for the door to knock, it opened. Inside, everything was so small that it felt like she was in a toy house. Tiny pots, tiny spoons, glasses. When she found a tiny bowl of soup, she was so hungry that she ate it. And then fell asleep on a tiny bed. Not far away, the owners of the house finished their work in the mines and went home. As soon as they entered, they knew something was wrong. So they walked quietly and whispered,
Shh. Someone has eaten my bread.
Someone has used my plate.
Someone is sleeping in my bed right now. Such a beautiful girl.
Ah! Hey! Goat!
Oh,
Get the lamp! Oh.
Catch!
Oh! Hey! Wow! Ah, get the lamp!
Whoa!
Catch!
Yikes! Phew!
What? Shh! She's awakened. She's hiding under the blanket. Don't be afraid of us, little girl. We are the 7 Dwarves. I am Ace, and these are jolly, angry, curious, silly, shy, and lazy.
Well, I am Snow White. I'm sorry I wandered into your house.
Snow White told them everything that had happened to her, and the dwarves were very sad to hear her tale. So they said she could stay with them in their little house, but only on one condition.
We really love to sing. Is your voice beautiful, my princess?
Snow White is my name. I'm far away from the castle today. I stare at the sky and speak to my mother. She is now among the stars. I have found happiness in this forest. My little friends protect me here. Their tiny hearts are now full of hope. Good little hearts will win again.
Far away in another land, there was a young, handsome prince. His name was Antoine. He loved sitting outside at night and looking at the stars, which reminded him of the people he loved. One night, he saw the face of Snow White in the starry sky and felt he should seek her out. A fairy told him she was in danger and gave him a magical heart necklace. So Prince Antoine got his trusty horse and rode away to find the beautiful face in the sky. Back in the castle, the evil-hearted Hela was again in front of her magic mirror.
Dunkov, uncover the magic mirror.
Let me see my beauty. Dunkov entered, but the cover got caught on the mirror, and he almost knocked it over. Dunkov is such a clumsy assistant. Always at the most critical times, he becomes awkward and clumsy. The queen was continually annoyed with him. When Dunkov had left, Queen Hela again asked the mirror to tell her how beautiful she was.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
Sorry, my queen, but Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarves, is the fairest in the land.
No! I thought Snow White was dead.
The queen stayed up all night, making evil plans to kill Snow White once and for all. She decided the best way to disguise herself, so she changed into a cute little bunny. In the morning, the dwarves went off to work. One by one, they kissed Snow White on the cheek and walked to the mine. And they warned her to be careful while in the house alone.
Now, princess, don't open the door to strangers. It isn't safe.
The forest seemed peaceful, and Snow White began to water the flowers in the garden. The princess noticed a little bunny sitting in the garden, who seemed hurt. She went over and picked it up and brought it inside the house. She bandaged the rabbit's hurt leg and let it rest in the sun on the dwarf's bed. The bunny seemed like it was sleeping, but as soon as the princess left the room, the rabbit opened its eyes and looked around. Then it jumped, and turned back into the evil Queen Hela. This was exactly what she had planned. She poured purple poison into the pillow, thinking that the princess would sleep there and die from the poison. Snow White was so tired from working in the garden that she went inside to rest. She was just about to put her head down on the poisoned pillow.
Snow White! Snow White!
When she heard the dwarves come home. The princess met them at the door, and after a delicious dinner, they danced all night long. Snow White fell asleep in front of the fireplace, and it's a good thing that she did, because then she wouldn't be sleeping on the poisonous pillow. When the queen returned to her castle, Dunkov was still asleep, guarding her door. Thinking her plan had succeeded, she went to the magic mirror.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
My queen, Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarves, is more beautiful than you.
Grr! No! I should be the most beautiful in all the land. Me! I will make a plan that will kill Snow White.
A few days later, while the dwarves worked in the mine, Snow White was sewing some of the dwarves' worn clothing. And then she heard a knock on the door. The door was knocked 3 times. Snow White looked through the door to see who it was. And it was an old, ugly woman with a basket of apples.
Who are you? I'm a saleswoman. I have very delicious apples. Would you like to try one?
Snow White was afraid to open the door at first, but she loved red apples.
Here you go. Enjoy it, my beautiful child. A free sample.
Snow White took the apple given by the old woman and took a bite. The apple had been poisoned. She fell to the ground before she could even cry out for help. Just down the road, Prince Antoine rested his horse in the shade of a tree. He had traveled far to find the beautiful face he had seen in the sky. Just off the road, he saw an old woman walking along. He was about to go speak with her when suddenly she transformed into the evil Queen Hela. The prince and his horse were stunned, and he decided to not go ask her for directions. Later that night, when the dwarves came home, they saw Snow White, still and lifeless, on the floor. They were so sad, and their hearts were broken into 1,000 pieces. They crafted a beautiful glass coffin and carried her to the country's longest river so that all the people of the kingdom would know of her beauty. Just downstream, the prince was traveling on his horse on the riverbank, and he noticed the glass coffin in the boat. He recognized the face of the girl immediately. The prince was very sad. But he opened the cover of the coffin. He took the stardust necklace from his pocket and put it on the princess.
Goodbye, my princess. Shine like a star wherever you are.
But just then, the prince saw Snow White move. The stardust necklace was magical and rewarded him for his diligent search of the face he saw in the sky. Snow White revived. When she awoke, she was amazed to have such a handsome prince standing beside her, rescuing her. When they eventually got to shore and returned to Snow White's castle, she and Prince Antoine told the king everything. When the king learned what Queen Hela did to Snow White, he banished her from the kingdom. The king locked the magic mirror and all of the queen's possessions into the dungeon of the castle. Many months later, Snow White and the prince fell in love because this was not an arranged marriage, and had a beautiful wedding in the castle. They invited the dwarves and celebrated and lived happily ever after. Snow White and the Magic Mirror. Once upon a time, there was a land of beautiful blue skies and lush green grass. There, in a magnificent castle, Snow White and the Prince Antoine lived happily. But not far away, evil-hearted Queen Hela lived in a dark cave behind the mountains. She and her servant Dunkov had been banished when they tried to kill Snow White, and now Hela had a new evil plan.
Dunkov, this time no one can stop me. I will have revenge on Snow White.
Yes, you will, Your Majesty.
Chamberlain, tell me, who is the fairest of them all?
You, my queen, are the fairest in all the land, except for, well...
Dumb Dunkov, no! I must be the most beautiful in all the land. I shall make a magic mirror so I can find the magic dark forest.
Hela's original magic mirror was locked up in the dungeon of the castle, so Hela began her plan to create a new magic mirror. To do this, she had to gather all the magical parts. First, she collected some Jim leaf, then the magical pink buds, and the floating swamp stones. Her magic spellbook said to boil them for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. Finally, out of the black brew came her new, more powerful magic mirror. Black mirror, awaken! Show me the forest of Snow White's funny little dwarven friends. Dunkov was surprised by what he saw. The new evil mirror floated in front of him, surrounded by floating black stones and a purple, spiky frame. Inside the mirror appeared the dwarves' forest, but it became dark and scary. Hela reached into the mirror. Black mirror, no longer on the wall. Change the dwarves' forest and capture them all. Meanwhile, the 7 dwarves who worked all day came out of the mine one by one. First Ace, then Shy, Angry, Silly, Curious, Jolly, and Lazy.
Phew, what a long day's work.
Yeah, let's get some rest. Maybe a good nap right here.
No way. Get up. We can't rest. We should go home before evening falls.
The dwarves got on their way in a single line. The silly dwarf was walking at the back of the line. He saw a crow flying among the branches of the trees. There was a bright little stone in Crow's mouth. The silly dwarf was distracted and started to climb the tree to get the brilliant stone in the mouth of the crow. Up, 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 just as he was about to catch the crow, the tree began to sway. The crow has flown away and gone. The branches wrapped around Silly Dwarf so tightly he could not escape, and he lost his green hat on a branch. The other dwarves didn't notice that Silly Dwarf was gone and kept walking. Now Curious Dwarf was in the back. And then he smelled a delicious pie. He closed his eyes and started to walk to the direction the scent came from. The bewitching forest led him right into a tree branch, and he hit his head. And then the magical scent of the forest covered him up and took him away. All that was left was his yellow hat. The rest of the dwarves finally arrived in their little cottage in the woods. Meanwhile, in the castle, Snow White gathered the kingdom's most delicious foods to bring to her favorite friends, the 7 dwarves.
Sweetheart, I'm going to the woods to visit my friends, the 7 dwarves.
Be careful on the road. That evil Hela could be anywhere. I love you, sweetheart.
Snow White began her long journey through the forest, and a beautiful bird came and rested on her shoulder. It was trying to warn her of something. The bird flew away from the road, trying to get Snow White to follow.
I see. You want me to follow you. I'm coming, little bird.
As Snow White followed the bird, she found the green hat swinging from a branch.
But this is Silly Dwarf's hat. Something bad must have happened to him.
The princess kept on following the colorful bird, and then she found the yellow hat on the thorny herbs.
gorgeous dwarf's hat.
The princess and the colorful bird quickly went to the cottage of the 7 dwarves. The dwarfs were hopeful when they saw Snow White.
Ah, Snow White, we're so glad you've come. We cannot find Curious and Silly. Will you help us? We need to find them.
They may have been trapped by the evil Hela. We must find them.
Shy and I will stay here at the house in case they return.
Snow White, Ace, Jolly, and Angry went out to search. Far away, at the Queen's evil cave in the mountains, Hela and her servant Dunkov had imprisoned Curious Dwarf and Silly Dwarf in a cage.
You'll be punished for helping Snow White. I will destroy all you in the dark forest.
Hela walked back into her cave to her evil mirror.
Black mirror, find Snow White and her friends. Change what was bright and warm into a stormy end.
Snow White and the dwarves were following the colorful bird along the trail, but then the weather changed into a dark storm. They kept going through the darkness so they could find their friends. They walked all night into the mountains. The colorful bird kept leading them to the mountain to rescue the dwarves. From the edge of the cliff, the evil-hearted Hela saw Snow White and other dwarves coming. She knew they would be tired from the storm.
I knew they would come. Dunkov, is everything ready?
Yes, Queen, it is ready.
Snow White and the dwarves were exhausted, but kept climbing the mountain. As they reached the top, they saw the entrance to the cave, and the cage hanging over the cliff with Curious and Silly.
We are going to save you.
Snow White! Snow White! Look out! The black mirror! Look out! She has a new mirror in the cave!
Snow White carefully entered the cave. Outside, Dunkov kept watch over Cage. Just out of sight, the dwarves whispered and made a clever plan to rescue their friends. Angry sneaked up behind Dunkov, leapt onto his back, and put a sack over his head. Then Jolly released the cage, but it came down so fast that it hit Dunkov in the head and knocked him out. And it's a good thing, too, because the door of the cage was still locked.
The key is on Dunkov's neck. Right there. Take a look. Grab it. Open this cage.
Jolly took the key that was on Dunkov's neck and quickly unlocked the cage. Silly and Curious were saved. But inside the cave, Snow White was face to face with the evil-hearted Queen Hela.
Hela, you can't be beautiful by doing evil. If you really want to be a beautiful woman, you must change your heart and stop hurting people. Beauty comes from the heart.
But the evil-hearted Hela didn't care. She used a magic spell to turn her eyes red and change her fingers into sharp knives. But behind Hela, the dwarves sneaked in to help Snow White. Hela approached Snow White, making her back up towards the black mirror.
Just enter the dark mirror, Snow White. Then you will disappear into the dark forest forever.
Silly Dwarf sneaked in front of the tall queen, and the other dwarfs pushed her from behind. She tumbled past Snow White into the black mirror. Hela's scream woke Dunkov up. He ran inside the cave and saw Snow White next to the mirror.
I am coming, my queen, fairest in all the land.
They were trapped. The dwarves ran with joy and hugged Snow White.
Thank you for saving us, Snow White.
Now we need to get rid of this.
The dwarves and the princess threw the mirror down from the cliff.
Now let's go home.
Finally, Silly and Curious were very happy to be at home again. Together with Snow White, they had a nice dinner and had fun. Snow White, the Lost Prince. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was the brightest, whitest, largest castle in all the land, where Snow White and Prince Antoine lived. They loved each other very much. In the mornings, they would walk together in the garden. In the afternoons, they would ride their horses. In the evening, they would dance together in their castle hall.
Snow White, you are so beautiful. You light up my heart every night.
As long as you're with me, my prince, I will shine like stars.
They finally got to enjoy peace in their kingdom, ever since the evil-hearted Queen Hela had been banned, and then trapped in the dark forest. But there in the dark forest, Evil Queen made her own castle out of poisonous mud. Her clumsy servant Dunkov served her faithfully. And now Hela had a magic globe to spy on Snow White.
Crystal ball on the table. Show Snow White if you are able. Grr. I hate Snow White. She's so pretty. I will destroy your precious prince, and then your beauty will turn to sorrow. No one can be more beautiful than me.
You are more beautiful than anyone, my queen. You're even more beautiful than me.
Get out, Dunkov. I don't want to see your ugly face.
The evil queen watched through her crystal ball as the prince left the castle. Hela closed her eyes and imagined her evil plan, and then called out to the magic mirror, which was still at the bottom of the sea. Black mirror, dark and round and flat, move in front of the prince like an invisible trap. The magic black mirror disappeared from the ocean and then moved in front of a tree on the prince's path. It changed to be invisible so it could trap the prince. Back at the palace, Snow White's closest friends, the 7 dwarves, were going off to work in the mines. Every morning, Snow White would see them off and give them kisses.
Goodbye, my 7 dwarves.
The prince had hired the dwarves to dig deep into their mine and collect precious gems for the castle.
Look! What is that? How bright it is. Achoo! Silly, look what you've done. You've messed them all up. Wait, here! There's more here. Hey, you're right. Look here in the rock.
The dwarves didn't know it, but they had found a very valuable, magical dust. It sparkled brightly, so they filled their tiny pouches with it, and then started back on the path to the castle.
Just a little bit here for you, and a little bit here for me. Here we go, back to the castle.
On the other side of the kingdom, Prince Antoine was traveling the road with his white horse, Prego. He was picking some lovely red roses for his wife, Snow White. And then he saw a beautiful red rose at the base of a tree and decided to ride his horse over to it.
Giddy up, pray go! Hurrah! Hey! Whoa, 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 boy.
But the prince did not see the magic black mirror in front of him. As he reached for the flower, his hand disappeared. But he kept going, moving further and further into the invisible mirror until he was completely gone. His horse Prego was shocked and afraid, and he ran back to the castle as fast as he could. Inside the dark mirror was the dark forest, where the prince laid on the ground. This was all part of Hela's plan.
Handsome Prince Antoine, asleep on the grass, I command your heart to do this one task. Gather all your memories of Snow White, and forget everything about her, and serve me with all your will and might.
Then Prince Antoine woke up, but his eyes had changed to red. His mind had forgotten Snow White, and he was under a spell to serve the evil queen.
I must obey, my queen.
Meanwhile, the prince's horse, Prego, ran as fast as he could to the castle. When Snow White saw the horse without Prince Antoine, she was worried that something bad had happened.
Prego, did something happen to Antoine? Oh no!
Snow White had an idea. She ran to the furthest, darkest room of the castle, where Queen Hela's original magic mirror had been locked away. The mirror always told the truth, so she thought she could use it to find out where Antoine was. The 7 dwarves arrived at the castle, unaware of what had happened to Prince Antoine. But when they saw Snow White running and worried, they ran after her and followed her to the dungeon where the original magic mirror was locked away. Snow White stood in front of the magic mirror.
Mirror on a golden stand?
The magic mirror didn't answer. Snow White asked again.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, answer my call.
Finally, the mirror answered.
You seek Prince Antoine. Hela has trapped him in the dark forest.
Hela. I knew it. I knew she was behind this.
Then the image of the magic mirror disappeared, and instead, Queen Hela suddenly appeared in the mirror. When the 7 dwarves saw Hela, they closed each other's eyes with fear.
If you want to save your precious prince, reach into the mirror to find him.
Snow White loved Antoine and took a step towards the mirror. Her hand went into the mirror, and she was pulled through it into the land of the dark forest.
Don't go!
No, Snow White, wait!
It was too late. Snow White arrived in the dark forest. Thunder lit up the sky. Trees burned in the dark, and scary creatures crept along in the distance. The 7 dwarves didn't know what to do, but they were loyal to Snow White and decided to follow her. As Snow White and the 7 dwarves made their way through the dark forest, a few fireflies came to them and lit the way. And it was a good thing, too, because they almost walked right into a lake. The princess and the dwarves carefully hopped across the lake on some stones. But suddenly, a giant octopus with 8 long tentacles reached up out of the water and attacked them. The evil creature snatched up the dwarves one by one and started swinging the dwarves back and forth.
Snow White! Snow White! Help! Ah!
And just as the octopus was going to grab Snow White, more fireflies flew around her to protect her.
Thank you, fireflies. Thank you. Please, rescue my friends too. Shine brighter.
The fireflies' light got stronger and brighter as they flew around Snow White. The fireflies flew over to the monster's big eyes,
Shine brighter!
and the monster was so annoyed with the light that it let go of the dwarves and they escaped. The octopus monster bubbled down into the water again.
Thank you, Snow White. You saved our lives.
Wow, we should be more careful. Look, that must be Hela's castle.
Oh, what a castle.
Inside the castle, Queen Hela began her evil plan. All she needed was a rope from Dunkov. Clumsy Dunkov tripped and tangled himself up in the rope. With one touch, Hela cast a spell on the rope, and it released Dunkov. Then the queen ordered Prince Antoine to catch Snow White with the magical rope. Snow White and the 7 dwarves finally arrived in the castle courtyard. Antoine was there, standing still with his hands and legs tied together. Snow White rushed to untie the prince, but it was a trap. As soon as she touched him, the magical rope switched over to Snow White's hands.
I caught her, my queen.
The 7 dwarves tried to untie the princess, but then the evil Queen Hela showed up right behind the prince.
I finally captured you, pretty Snow White. Oh, you are terrible, Hela. You've bewitched him with a spell.
Hela began to walk towards Snow White to destroy her with the magical fire. Magic flames were all around her. The dwarves were shocked, but Silly Dwarf ran towards the queen to stop her. But then he tripped, and the dwarf's tiny pouch flew through the air, and the magic dust from the mine fell onto the hands of the princess, and the ropes came undone.
I'm free.
Hey, look! The dust we found in the mine breaks the spells.
What? When Snow White saw what happened, she remembered that her necklace was made of stardust. So she opened the lid of the necklace and blew the stardust towards Prince Antoine. And then Prince was freed from the spell, and he was himself again.
Rope! Dunkov, get me the magical rope.
But Prince Antoine was faster and snatched up the rope and then threw it around Dunkov. The magic rope tied up Dunkov tightly. Then all the other dwarves blew the magic mine dust from their pouches towards the evil Queen Hela, and the dust extinguished the magic flames around her. Hela turned into a stone statue. Then all the magical dust was caught up in the wind and blew all through the dark forest and changed it to a beautiful place again. And the forest grew, full of leaves and grass and flowers. Hela was turned to stone, and her wickedness had finally been stopped.
Hey! Yeah! Hooray! Yeah!
And love and friendship had taken its place. Snow White, the prince, and the 7 dwarves returned to their castle, and everything was as beautiful and peaceful as before.
I have found happiness in this forest. My little friends protect me here. Their tiny hearts are now full of hope.
Snow White and the Huntsman. Once upon a time, Snow White and Prince Antoine were living happily in their castle. One day, Ace Dwarf came to Snow White.
Prince, Snow White, I have something important to tell you.
Of course, my friend. What do you need?
Well, We all came back from the mine to the castle. We went to our rooms to rest. Then all of a sudden, we heard a strange voice. Help me! So we all went a-looking. We walked through a long, thin corridor, down through some stairs, and we saw... What did you see, Ace? A dungeon. And inside the dungeon, a huntsman.
Really? He might be the huntsman who saved my life. Evil-hearted Hela must have put him in the dungeon because he disobeyed her.
Snow White and Prince Antoine rushed to the dungeon Ace was talking about. They saved the huntsman from the dungeon.
Oh, thank you for saving my life, Snow White. I've been down in this dungeon like forever.
Meanwhile, across the kingdom, in a dark corner of the forest, stood a stone statue. The evil-hearted Queen Hela was still trapped inside. Dunkov was nearby in a tent he made from 4 sturdy sticks and a dirty cloth. Inside the tent, he was searching the Book of Magic for a spell to free Hela from the stone.
Invisibility spell, mist spell, youth spell. Youth. That could come in handy. Okay, anyway. Aha! Here it is. I got it.
Dunkov took a branch off the tree and started to shake it by using it like a magic wand.
Now I'm going to save you, my queen. Abra-cracka-racka. From stone to human, from human to queen. Ta-ta-ta-ta-da.
The stone statue started to crackle. Something magical was happening. But then, Hela turned into an enormous shell snail. She crawled toward Dunkov with her sticky antenna. Dunkov realized that he had made an awful mistake and ran into the tent to look for a better spell.
Oh, Slimeball. What are we going to do about this?
He finally found another spell and started to shake the branch at the snail. This time, Hela turned into a huge frog. Dunkov, terrified of the frog, ran into the tent again.
I'm out of here.
And he started to talk to himself with the stick still in his hand.
Look at those troubles the 7 dwarves have caused. None of these spells work. Not hocus pocus, not abracadabra, rock-headed, sock-headed, those block-headed dwarves, rocco-blocco.
The words that Dunkov was muttering were actually the words of another spell. And at that moment, the dwarves back in the castle's garden turned to stone. Snow White, Prince Antoine, and the Huntsman were very surprised.
Oh no! My dwarves, what happened? How did this happen to you? Please say something.
Oh, they look like they're under a spell.
Snow White ran to the room where Hela had her magic mirror and asked the mirror,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, my dwarves, what happened to them all?
Your dwarves, my princess. Dunkov cast a spell from far away while he was trying to free Hela from her stone curse.
How can we make this spell end and free my dwarven friends?
Yes, Snow White. In order to undo the curse, you must find the page torn out of the Book of Magic hidden in the forest.
Snow White went to see the huntsman in the throne room. She told him about the magic page from the spell book and asked the huntsman if he could save the dwarves.
I will gladly help you and the dwarves, my princess. It is my honor to save them.
Huntsman prepared and took to the road.
Giddy up.
His mission was to find the missing page with the spell that could save the dwarves. Meanwhile, not far away, Dunkov noticed a page was missing from the spell book.
Maybe the spell I need is on that missing page. Just sneak past the front.
He really had no idea where to look.
Under this rock. No, in this hole.
But the magical page was not there.
Phew.
Not far away. The magical page was actually hanging on the branch of a colorful wish tree. Dunkov and the huntsman both came to the same place to find it. And they both spotted each other. Dunkov was a little frightened, but then they both noticed the paper hanging from the wish tree. They were both the same distance from the tree. They would have to race each other to get there. Dunkov started running as fast as his stubby little legs would carry him. But the huntsman had a better idea. He drew his bow and shot his arrow.
Wow, he's got speed! Look at that little guy go!
Dunkov was so fast that the arrow almost didn't catch up with him. But it distracted him just enough that he didn't see the stones in the way. The arrow zipped past and snatched the page off of the tree.
I should have used that youth spell on me.
Dunkov had failed again, and the huntsman quickly took the magical paper and returned to the castle. Snow White took the paper from the huntsman and went to the dwarf's room.
Now made of stone and not so tall, who look of garden gnomes one and all, I speak this spell to break the curse and cause what's wrong to now disperse.
The stone dwarves slowly began to crack apart, and then, one by one, the stone spell was broken for each of them. First Ace, then Silly, Shy, Angry, Jolly, Curious, and Lazy.
Thank you, my princess.
Aye, and thank you too, Huntsman.
Yeah, I slept like a rock because we were turned to stone.
Snow White and the 7 dwarves were very happy to see that the spell had been broken. And once again, the kingdom was peaceful.
Snow White is my name. I'm far away from the castle today. I stare at the sky and speak to my mother. She is now among the stars. I have found happiness in this forest. My little friends protect me here. Their tiny hearts are now full of hope. Good little hearts will win again.
Snow White and the Poisonous Comb. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a large castle where Snow White, Prince Antoine, and the 7 dwarves lived together. One day, Prince Antoine and Snow White went for a horseback ride, and the dwarves decided to go for a walk too. But on the forest road, someone was watching from behind a tree. It was a dwarf girl who had white hair and freckles. She was frightened of the royal guards and tall horses, so she stayed hidden. A few days later, in Hela's cave, Dunkov was still trying to turn Queen Hela back into a human.
Bippity boppity boo. My dear queen, I have a perfect idea to bring you back. I've read in a fairy tale, if a young prince kisses you...
Dunkov opened the youth spell from the Book of Spells. He said the magic words.
Spell, spell, see my big tooth? Give me the spell of youth.
He turned himself into a very handsome prince. Hela was surprised. Dunkov kissed the frog gently. And sure enough, the frog spell was broken.
Wow! Well done! Who would have thought you'd have the brains to figure that one out? Now turn back to your ugly self, Dunkov.
But my queen, I look great now like this.
But with a wave of her hand, she turned Dunkov back into himself again. But just then, Hela noticed some muddy footprints on the cave floor.
Dunkov! Shh! Don't move. There's someone else here.
Hela followed the muddy footprints that led back behind a bookshelf in the cave. And behind the books was a dwarf with freckles and white curly hair.
You! Who are you? And what are you doing here? Tell me now.
The cute, freckled dwarf came out of her hiding place.
I'm sorry. I was cold and I needed a place to sleep. I was looking for the cottage of the 7 dwarves, but I lost my way in the forest. Mom, my name is Freckled.
Freckled, I can help. The 7 dwarves now live in the castle of Snow White, not in the forest.
In a castle?
I've met the dwarves. They are full of themselves and probably didn't care that you were wandering around in the dangerous forest. Look here at my crystal ball.
Hela showed the little dwarf how happy the dwarves were in the castle, and Freckles felt alone and left out.
Let me tell you a secret, Freckled. You just need to do something nice for Snow White, and then they will all be your friends. Here, take this comb and brush her hair with it, and you will be as popular as she is. Then they will invite you too to live in their castle.
But Hela didn't tell her that she was going to poison the comb. She would put a spell on it, so that as soon as it touches Snow White's hair, it would make the beautiful princess turn ugly and old. Freckled took the comb and put it in her bag, and the evil queen sent her on the road to the castle. While Freckled walked through the forest, a colorful bird flew above her. One of its pretty feathers fell right down into Freckled's hand. And so she put it in her hair. It must have been magical, because it suddenly changed Freckled's white hair into a golden blonde color. She liked it very much. On the same path, the 7 dwarves were coming back from the mine to go back to the castle. Then the 7 dwarves saw Freckled with the bright golden hair.
Hey, think there's someone out there. Oh, someone just like us.
Oh, but beautiful.
The dwarves ran up to Freckled and met her. Shy's cheeks immediately flushed when he shook hands with Freckled.
Well, would you like to come to the castle with us sometime?
I would love that.
Hela watched all of this through her crystal ball and was delighted to see that everything was going just as she had planned. The dwarves finally arrived at the castle. For the first time in her life, the freckled dwarf saw a large castle and such a beautiful garden. Snow White came out to greet the dwarves.
Oh my! Hello! There is someone new here. I'm Snow White. You must be the new friend of the 7 dwarves.
Yes, my princess. My name is Freckled. Thank you, my princess.
Freckled told Snow White that she no longer wanted to live alone and would like to live with them in the castle.
I'll prepare a room for you, Freckled.
You're so kind. You have really nice hair. It's beautiful. So soft and silky. Let me comb your hair with the comb I brought for you.
Freckled started to comb Snow White's hair with the comb, unaware that the evil Hela had poisoned it with a spell. And just as it touched Snow White's hair, her hair suddenly turned white. Snow White's face became old and wrinkled.
Snow White, princess, what has happened to your face?
It's done.
The princess leaned over the edge of the tiny pool and looked at her reflection in the water.
Oh no! No! What has happened to me?
The dwarves immediately took the comb from Freckled's hand and threw it in the water.
Why did you do that, Freckled?
I didn't know the comb was poisonous. A woman named Hela gave it to me to comb Snow White's hair. I'm so sorry.
Hela!
Wait, I know, princess. I can change you back with this feather.
How are you gonna change her back?
Freckles took the colored feather from her hair and put it in Snow White's hair. And then the beauty of Snow White slowly turned back.
Hey, all right, yeah.
Thank you, Freckled.
Don't take anything from the people you don't know, Freckled.
It worked!
Good job, Freckled.
Yippee!
Yeah.
From then on, the freckled dwarf was happy and lived with her friends in the castle.
Ah! She survived again. Why can't I win just once? I hate Snow White.
Snow White and Sleepwalker Dwarves. Once upon a time, in one of the faraway lands, Snow White, Prince Antoine, and the 7 dwarves were living together in a huge castle. One day, the beautiful Snow White went to the castle garden. The dwarves usually took care of the gardening and mowing. But they were nowhere to be seen that morning. So Snow White wondered where they were.
Ace! Silly! Shy! Where are you?
Since they weren't outside, she checked their place inside the castle. She opened the doors slightly, but didn't see or hear any of them. So she began to worry.
Where did they go? And why didn't they tell me? Didn't they know I worry?
Snow White returned to the castle. She looked for the dwarves everywhere, but couldn't find them. The day earlier, all 7 dwarves had gone to visit their old tiny home. They had not told Snow White because they wanted to surprise her with a beautiful flower. They cleaned up their yard and found a beautiful orange flower from their garden. And then they set off to return to the castle. Just down the road, they came to their boat at the river. They all jumped in and crossed to the other side of the river easily. But as soon as they got off the boat, what do you suppose they saw? It was Dunkov, the old assistant of the wicked Queen Hela. There he was, standing with a bottle of water in his hand.
Oh no, it's Dunkov. Hello, cute, sweet, tiny dwarves. Please get out of our way, Dunkov. Yes, look, we are 7, you are 1, so you can't beat us. Okay, calm down. My intention is not to harm you. I was going to offer you some water. You look thirsty. No need, we don't drink water. Well, Angry, I wish you hadn't answered so quickly. Look, Shy and Lazy look pretty thirsty. But Thank you, Dunkov. Some water would be really good.
Dunkov handed the bottle in his hand to Ace, and the dwarves drank from the water one by one. Dunkov started laughing. He laughed so hard he fell over. And if he had laughed any longer, he may have passed out.
Hilarious. I can't stand it.
What's so funny, Dunkov? Why are you laughing so much?
Yes, my Queen Hela's plan is working.
The dwarves didn't realize that there was something magical in the water, and suddenly they just fell asleep. Dunkov came closer and sprinkled a magical dust on them. Then they all stood up and started to walk while they were still sleeping. Even lazy dwarfs loud sleeping couldn't wake them up.
That's right, this way. Come, curious and sleepy and slobbery and overweight and short little. Come on, dwarves.
While the dwarves were obediently following Dunkov, Snow White noticed the footsteps of the 7 dwarves in the garden.
The footsteps of the 7 dwarves. If I follow these footsteps, maybe I can find them.
So Snow White took to the road. Meanwhile, the wicked Hela was insidiously watching the princess through the glass globe.
Fell into my trap again, Snow White. I will never let you go before destroying your beauty. Now fall into my trap to save those friends you love so much.
The 7 dwarves entered Hela's cave one by one and settled in a corner. Outside on the road, Snow White followed the footsteps on the forest road and noticed that the road had led her to Hela's cave.
I should have guessed. Hela is up to no good again. What has she done with my short friends? I must find out and stop her.
As Snow White approached Hela's cave, a fairy suddenly appeared behind her.
Wow, a fairy! I can't believe my eyes.
The fairy couldn't speak to Snow White, but she gave her a magic flute.
But I don't even know how to play a flute.
The princess first didn't understand, what the flute was for. The fairy made a magical circle around Snow White to help protect her from Hela's evil spells. And then the fairy disappeared into the forest. Snow White took the flute with her and continued on her way. And after a while, she reached Hela's cave.
Hela!
I've been waiting for you, Snow White.
Clearly you haven't stopped your evil schemes. I know you kidnapped my dwarven friends. Now where are they?
Kidnap? Me? They came here willingly. And now they serve me. Kneel, dwarves. The dwarves came to Hela one by one and knelt before her. But their eyes were still closed, and they were in a very deep sleep.
My dwarves! What happened to you? Open your eyes!
They can't hear you. They will obey only my orders. Dwarves, surround Snow White. Let us take away her beauty. The 7 dwarves walked towards Snow White, sleepwalking. The princess was confused and afraid. Then she remembered the flute that the fairy gave her, and so she started to play it. And at the sound of the magical flute, the dwarves woke up from their deep sleep.
My princess! What is happening? Where are we? Look! Look! Isn't she the wicked Queen Hela? Stay away from us.
Snow White kept on playing the flute. Hela and Dunkov could not bear the sound more and ran to the back of the cave. Snow White did not understand why they fled, but she was very happy that the flute worked.
Thank you, Snow White.
I guess that will stall them for a while. Let's get out of here.
Snow White and the 7 dwarves left the cave and took the path of the castle. The 7 dwarves were very happy to be in the castle again.
My princess, we actually left the castle so we could fetch you a little gift.
This special flower only grows at the garden of our home, and we wanted to bring it to you.
Such a beautiful flower. Thank you. But you put your life in danger for this. Next time, don't get out of the castle without telling me, okay? With Hela on the loose, we've got to keep track of each other.
Meanwhile, Hela and Dunkov finally recovered from the sound of the magical flute. How was I supposed to know that the flute was so powerful?
The flute's sound was bad, Your Majesty, but the song she played was beautiful.
Shut up, Dunkov! The flute that the fairy gave to Snow White was actually a flute made from songs of friendship and goodness, and it could overcome the evil spell because Snow White and the 7 dwarves had a deep friendship for a long time. And those who are really bad at friendships hated to hear the sound of the flute because they never understood what love and friendship mean. Snow White and the Wood Nymph. Once upon a time, an evil queen named Hela was living on the top of a very high mountain. Hela always wanted to be the most beautiful person in the world. However, Snow White, who lived in the most beautiful castle of the country, was much more beautiful.
Dunkov, what are you eating?
Yes, my queen. I was eating a steak with lots of sauce. Would you like to take a sample?
Ugh, no. I have to pay attention to what I eat.
But this is the best steak in the world, my queen.
Dunkov, go away and eat your steak. Leave me alone with this little nymph.
Dunkov went to a corner of the cave and continued to eat his steak with pleasure. Little nymph, what happens if you can't fly to the sky tonight? The little nymph was flapping her wings up and down in the cage with fear. The light of the full moon goes out, doesn't it? So what happens if there is no light in the sky at night? Darkness. Hela was planning to imprison the nymph in her cave and turn off the light of the full moon. Then she could perform her treacherous plans without being seen. Meanwhile, Snow White's best friends, the 7 dwarves, were coming out of the mine where they worked all day and were walking through the woods towards the castle.
Ace, Dwarf, was it getting so dark when we used to return to the castle?
Maybe that means it's time for us to just sleep now.
The sky was so dark that the dwarves could not even see each other. And Ace Dwarf realized he could no longer see the moon and stars in the sky.
There's something wrong. The light of the full moon has gone out. This explains why the sky is so dark, boys.
But why did the light of the full moon go out?
One of the wood nymphs must be in trouble. The full moon loses its light if that happens. We need to get back to the castle right away. Come on.
The dwarves used their minor flashlights to see the road to the castle. Meanwhile, Snow White and Prince Antoine were looking out through the castle's balcony.
Tonight is much darker than the others.
And the 7 dwarves haven't returned yet. What if they can't find their way in the dark?
Suddenly, Prince Antoine noticed the flashlights between the trees.
Look at these lights, my princess. Could these be 7 dwarves?
Yes, that must be them.
Snow White went to meet the dwarves outside the castle.
7 dwarves, the night is too dark. How did you find your way?
We're minor dwarves, my princess. We work underground.
Our flashlights show us the way.
But we have bad news, Snow White.
The nymph that gives the light to the moon must be in danger, because no night has ever been so dark.
The nymph who helped me out in the forest. Could it be that nymph? It could need our help. We must find out.
Snow White started to run towards the oldest and darkest room of the castle, where they kept evil Hela's magic mirror that always tells the truth.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, show me what happened to the wood nymph.
The magic mirror showed her that the nymph was held in a cage.
I know there. This place the cage stands. Hela's cave.
Snow White got on her horse and set off with great courage to save the nymph, unaware of what might happen to her.
Come on, Snow White. You can do it. Don't be afraid of the dark. Let's go, Prego.
Prego didn't do what Snow White said.
What happened, Prego? Are you afraid?
Prego didn't move because the silly dwarf was standing before him.
Silly? What are you doing here?
Oh, I didn't want to leave you alone, my princess. Look, I brought you a light too.
Snow White took the silly dwarf with her and started to set off.
So you're so brave, Snow White. You see now.
Hela began to say magical words to the glass globe. Meanwhile, the silly dwarf and Snow White, who were riding on the horse, began to hear strange noises.
What was that noise, my princess?
These noises they heard were coming from an ivy root controlled by the magic of Hela. And these roots started to wrap the silly dwarf and the princess with lots of ivy branches. But Prego quickly retreated and got rid of them at the last minute.
Oh, no.
No!
My princess! Look out!
No way,
Oh, no.
Ivy!
No!
Help! Help!
Help, my princess!
Oh.
There's ivies all over! Help!
Prego targeted the roots of ivy branches with his sharp eyes. After rubbing his horseshoes on the ground a couple of times, he started galloping towards that root. Finally, he stepped on the magical ivy root. Thus, the ivy root, which was disconnected with magic, immediately pulled its branches. Snow White and the silly dwarf got rid of the branches surrounding them.
Thank you, Prego. You are amazing. Come on, silly dwarf. Let's go and save the wood nymph.
Hela was standing before the black mirror with Dunkov.
Snow White can never get rid of that ivy, Dunkov. Tomorrow, I will be the most beautiful woman in the world again.
Yes, my queen. Your magical vines must already have destroyed her.
As they speak, Snow White and Silly Dwarf have already reached Hela's cave. They secretly entered the cave without making any sound and saw in a corner a cage.
Silly, stay here. Don't make any sound.
Snow White, with silent steps, reached the cage before Hela and Dunkov could see her, and then lifted and opened the cover. The nymph came out of the cage and quietly landed and settled on the shoulder of Snow White. The princess slowly walked back to the silly dwarf. But while they were about to come out of the cave together, Silly Dwarf's foot was stuck in a stone, and he fell, and the silence inside was broken.
What was that noise?
Which noise, my queen? No.
They noticed us. Run, Silly, run!
Hela saw Snow White and the silly dwarf leaving the castle.
Snow White! How could you get rid of that ivy?
Then she realized that the cage was empty.
No! They've taken the nymph too! Dunkov, run! Catch them!
Even though Dunkov was running after them, it was not possible for him to catch them. Meanwhile, Snow White and Silly Dwarf got on Prego with the nymph and started to move away from the cave.
No! No! We couldn't do it again. We lost again! I must be the most beautiful woman in the world!
Snow White stopped her horse Prego among the trees.
Now you are free, wood nymph. Fly and light our full moon.
The princess flew the wood nymph from her palm to the sky. As the nymph flapped her wings, the stars started to shine again. And finally, the full moon began to reflect its own light into the night.
The sky is glittering again, so let's go back to our castle.
So let me turn off my flashlight now, my princess.
When Snow White and the silly dwarf arrived at the palace, together with other dwarf friends and the prince, they looked at the stars in the sky and made wishes. After all, the wishes of kind-hearted people come true sooner or later. Snow White and the Royal Crown. Once upon a time, a very beautiful girl named Snow White was living in a faraway land. One day, Snow White took a ride in the woods with her clever horse Prego. When Prego got tired, they stopped and rested under a tree. At that time, Snow White realized that there were wild strawberries around and began to pick some.
These strawberries are so delicious that I can eat even 5 handfuls of them in one sitting, Prego.
The princess handed some of the wild strawberries to Prego, and he ate them. He was very hungry from the long journey. Then they continued their journey. In another corner of the forest, Hela, who was jealous of the beauty of Snow White, was walking around. Of course, her clumsy assistant Dunkov was with her.
Your Majesty! Your Majesty! My queen! Wild strawberry season has come! Look, I've picked some for you. Oh.
If you could do anything, I'd be surprised, Dunkov. Hela was collecting materials for her new spells on this trip to the forest. And a little from that weed? Okay.
It's you! It's you! My queen! I can't stop sneezing! It's you!
Because it is a sneeze weed, Dunkov. Achoo! Hela protected herself from the sneezing weed with a flick of her wrist. However, Dunkov continued to sneeze.
It's you! It's you!
Meanwhile, something shining among the trees caught their attention. Dunkov, don't move. I'm going to go and take a closer look at whatever that bright thing is over there. While Hela was slowly moving towards the shining object, Snow White also saw the same glimmer in the woods.
Prego, wait here. I'll go and see what that strange bright thing is.
Prego's nose began to pick up unpleasant scents. Pungent smells were all around. And he tried to stop Snow White.
Don't worry, Prego. Nothing will happen. I'll just check it out.
On the one hand, Snow White, on the other hand, the evil Hela, were walking carefully. As they got closer, they realized that the bright thing they saw was a golden crown. A gold crown? Huh? Snow White?
Hela?
Hela reacted quicker than Snow White and snatched up the crown. It's my crown, okay? It is mine. No one can take it.
No, Hela. It is a royal crown. Only the real princesses can wear it.
Who made up that dumb rule? Hela didn't care and proceeded to place the crown on her head. But there was no change. The crown didn't even fit her.
Well, that just proves that it's a simple, ordinary crown.
Your Majesty, because you are not a real princess.
Huh? What did you say?
This is the golden rule of the Book of Princesses. Only real princesses can use the true power of that crown.
Well, if that's the case, and I'm holding this magical crown, I will never give you this power, Snow White.
Hela took the crown and started to back away. Poor Snow White couldn't stand it, and her curiosity got the best of her, so she followed Hela.
Wait, if you give me the crown, I will tell you the secret of my beauty.
What?
No way.
Really? Prego, I have never lied, have I?
Hela wanted to know the secret of Snow White's beauty more than anything else in the world.
All right, princess. But it will not be easy to get this crown.
With the tiny magic mirror she pulled out of her pocket, Hela revealed 3 identical boxes. She put the crown in one of these boxes and started to rearrange and mix up the boxes quickly with that little mirror.
You have 3 guesses, Snow White. If you can't find the correct box with the crown will stay with me forever.
Snow White watched the boxes carefully and chose one of them. But it wasn't the right box.
Wrong. The crown was in this box. You have 2 guesses left, princess.
The boxes were getting mixed up again quickly. This time, the princess carefully followed the box with the crown. She made her decision when the boxes stopped. But she was wrong again.
The crown was in this box. Now it is your last chance, Snow White.
We must be more careful, Prego. You watch too.
Hela put the crown in one of the boxes again and started mixing with the magic mirror. Snow White and Prego were watching the boxes carefully. In the end, they both marked the same box. And they found the crown.
No! No way! No!
We finally found it. Now you can give the royal crown to its real owner, me, Hela.
No, I won't. I won't. I found it first. It's mine.
Hela threw a pinch of sneezeweed to Snow White. Prego, however, jumped forward to protect the princess and caught the weed with his mouth. And he started sneezing immediately.
Prego, you have to go and eat some wild strawberries. I'm sure it will be good for you.
While looking around, Prego noticed the wild strawberries in Dunkov's hand. And he quickly ran and started to eat the red berries out of Dunkov's hand.
Achoo! Were these good for sneezing? Achoo!
You must keep your promise, Hela. Otherwise, I will never tell you the secret of my beauty.
Hela remembered her desire to learn all the secrets of Snow White's beauty and finally agreed to give the crown to Snow White.
It wasn't beautiful anyway, and I think it does nothing. Take the crown. Come on, Snow White, tell me. Tell me, how can you be so beautiful? What are you eating? Is it black mud? Or do you put leaf jam on your face? What are you doing? What?
Snow White, looking at Hela with all her beauty, explained to her the most important secret, as she promised.
It is not any of those you mentioned. The secret of my beauty is just having a kind heart, Hela.
What? A kind heart? Nonsense!
The secret of my beauty lies in my heart full of kindness and in my deep love for people, animals, and nature, Hela. I'm telling the truth.
Snow White, after her last words, got on her horse Prego. Then she wore the royal crown and became invisible, thanks to the power of the crown.
Discover the goodness in your heart.
Hela and Dunkov couldn't believe what they saw.
The royal crown has an invisibility power.
How do I get a kind heart? I must go and look at the spell book immediately. Get out of my way, Dunkov.
Snow White finally returned to the castle with the royal crown on her head. She put her royal crown in a special place and went to see Prince Antoine. And the 7 dwarves welcomed Snow White with joy.
Snow White, did you bring us wild strawberries?
A big sack of wild strawberries is waiting for you in the garden.
Hooray! Yay! Hooray! Oh, yeah! Yippee! Let's go and eat!
Hey, let's go get the strawberries!
Off to the garden!
Let's go and eat!
Oh, yeah! Yay!
Thoughtful and kind you are, Snow White.
Everyone has the ability to be kind, my prince.
While Snow White and all her loved ones happily were eating wild strawberries, the evil-hearted Hela was trying to make herself a good heart in her cave for days and nights.
I'm so close. I think it's done this time.
Unfortunately, she never understood that the spells she makes can never replace true, selfless kindness towards others. Snow White and the Invisibility Power. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a very beautiful girl named Snow White. Snow White loved to walk in the forest with her horse Prego, pick flowers, and sing.
I have found happiness in this forest. My little friends protect me here. Their tiny hearts are now full of hope. Good little hearts will win again.
And the 7 dwarves living with her in the castle remained steadfastly by her side. In fact, they would do anything to make her laugh.
Here I am, the jolly dwarf. Ha ha! Woo woo woo! Whoa! Oh! And up and down and up and oops and one-handed. Ha ha! Ta-da! Ooh! Whoops!
Well done, Jolly. You are very talented.
Boom! 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 Hooray!
Ace.
Ah, what you see is a white handkerchief, Princess. But this is actually a white dove. Ha ha ha! Ta-da!
You're great, Ace.
Angry, shy, silly, and lazy.
You guys are heavy.
Oh, you're so heavy.
Hey, I'm on top.
Wow! Unbelievable!
Oh, whoops. I can't carry any more. You guys are so heavy. Oh, my back.
I think I fell asleep.
Bravo! Bravo! You always manage to make me laugh, my 7 dwarves.
You are our dear princess, Snow White.
While Snow White was enjoying her time with her dwarf friends, Silly Dwarf left them unobtrusively. And started walking down the long corridor of the castle.
I may not be a princess, but I really want to use the invisibility power.
While the silly dwarf was walking slowly to the royal crown, Hela, who was living in her cave deep in the forest, was watching the castle life with her sneaky gaze through the magical glass globe.
Why are they having so much fun? Dunkov!
Yes, my queen.
Amuse me.
Amuse you. I have a great joke for you, my queen. Now, there are 3 men. One a peasant, one from the castle, and the other from the city. And one of them had a big foot, and one had a medium foot, and the other had a very small foot. And they went to the cobbler shop.
Stop it! Ugh. I didn't command you to make me fall asleep. Amuse me.
But you didn't hear the end of it. It's very funny, my queen.
Get out of my sight, Dunkov.
Okay.
Hela got the glass globe again, and her eyes glowed when she saw the silly dwarf took the royal crown.
The royal crown? What is this dwarf doing here?
The silly dwarf secretly took the royal crown and put it on himself. And suddenly, he was invisible. But he could not understand this himself.
So where's the invisibility power? Nothing seems to have changed.
Watching what happened, Hela was so surprised that she started talking to herself.
But I thought only the princess could benefit from this power. But I see that dwarves can also use the invisibility power.
After a while, Silly Dwarf thought the crown was useless and tried to take it off. However, the royal crown got stuck on the dwarf's head.
Oh, no. Oh, ow. Oh, I can't get off. What do I do? Oh, no.
When she realized that Silly Dwarf was invisible, Hela had an idea.
If it's not possible to make a heart much better than Snow White's and destroy her beauty, I'll turn myself into a dwarf and take the crown. Then I'll be invisible.
You, my queen? Dwarf? You'll be short?
Again, a great idea, isn't it, Dunkov?
Silly Dwarf went to ask the other dwarfs to help take off the royal crown.
Hey, the crown got stuck on my head. Shy, Lazy, Ace, hey! They don't see me. Oh no, the crown works. What am I going to do now? I will remain invisible forever.
I can't see Silly Dwarf. Where could he have gone?
He was just here, my princess. Oh, guys, is that a flying cup, or am I seeing things? Huh? Someone took my hat off. Oh, someone took my hat off too.
Silly Dwarf was trying to show his friends that he most certainly was there with them in the castle hall. But the dwarves and the princess only became more scared because they didn't understand.
Dangerous things are happening, my dwarves. We need to find Silly Dwarf. Something bad might have happened to him.
The dwarves and Snow White left the castle hall. And Silly Dwarf chased after them.
Wait! Don't go! I'm here!
The princess and the other dwarves went out into the castle garden and started looking for Silly.
Silly! Silly is definitely not in the castle, princess. I've looked everywhere.
Apparently, Silly Dwarf also had followed them. And he just went out into the castle garden. It was then that the shy dwarf saw a basket full of apples floating towards them.
Look over there! A flying apple basket! I can't believe my eyes. No! Now I'm really scared.
I don't know what is going on here, but if there's an evil spell around, we need to get rid of this now, my dwarves. The silly dwarf, who saw Snow White and the dwarves so scared, had an idea right at that very moment. He took a stick from the ground.
Oh, the stick! The stick is going to attack us! Run away!
And he started telling what happened to him by drawing on the ground. Wait, dwarves, don't go! This stick is trying to tell us something. By drawing on the ground, Silly Dwarf explained that the crown was stuck on his head and could not take it off, while the dwarves looked on with great confusion at the lines on the floor. Snow White finally understood what was going on. It is Silly Dwarf! The royal crown got stuck on Silly's head. That's why he is invisible.
Oh.
Don't move from where you are, Silly. I know you can hear us. We'll save you.
Heave! Ho! 1, 2, 3.
Silly Dwarf finally got rid of the crown on his head, thanks to his friends, and reappeared.
Oh, I was with you from the very beginning, but you couldn't see or hear me at all. Maybe that had something to do with you being invisible. Yeah. By the way, wasn't the invisibility power just for princesses, Snow White?
Snow White learned that, thanks to Silly Dwarf, both dwarves and princesses could use the invisibility power. But they had no news of Hela, who had learned this information long before them. If I can't make a good heart, then I'll turn myself into a dwarf and take the crown. No one can stop me, Dunkov. While there are so many things that are unknown in this land, the bad-hearted people use everything they learn for a bad purpose. Like Snow White, good-hearted people always use everything they learn to do good things, because information would be useful only then.
Snow White is my name. I'm far away from the castle today. I stare at the sky and speak to my mother. She is now among the stars.
Snow White and the Dwarf Queen. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was an evil queen named Hela. This queen would stand in front of her dark magic mirror almost every day and ask it questions.
Black mirror, dark mirror, tell me, who is the most evil of them all?
The black mirror always reflected Hela's own silhouette in response to this question.
Of course I am the most evil of them all.
This way, I can get everything I want. Hela wanted to be the most beautiful woman in this world by casting evil spells. However, she could not surpass the beauty of Snow White, who was much more beautiful than her.
Thanks to my new spell, I will now overshadow Snow White's beauty.
Very respectable, Queen. Isn't your new spell a little dangerous?
I prefer risking such a danger rather than sitting around like you, Dunkov.
Hela went to the potion bottles. She picked up the bottle of purple potion. With this potion she had prepared, she was going to turn herself into a dwarf, steal the crown of invisibility, and use the power of the crown to destroy Snow White's beauty. But at that time, Snow White, who was living in a beautiful white castle in another part of the country, was having fun with her dwarf friends, unaware of her sinister schemes.
Okay, everyone in place?
Yes, my princess.
Then I shall get started.
Snow White loved the game called Telephone Tongue Twisters. In this game, the friends formed a line and tried to correctly convey the tongue twister that the first person whispered to the last person. In the end, everyone laughs merrily if the last person couldn't get the tongue twister right.
Oh, let me think. I found it. Get the pot, cast the pot, bring the pot, cast the pot.
Aw, it's hard. Get the boat, cast the pot, bring the boat, cast the pot.
Get the boat, turn the boat, burn the goat, turn the float.
Bring the goat, turn the float.
Yes, Shy, tell us. What's the tongue twister?
Well, bring it, take it, get it, have it.
You never would have guessed it, Shy.
What was it originally? Get the pot, cast the pot, bring the pot, cast the pot. Oh no.
As fun days pass at Snow White's castle, the evil Hela was about to drink that dangerous potion in her terrible cave.
Listen carefully, Dunkov. When the full moon comes out, you have to pull the magic rope to get me back to my old self, so that I can shapeshift between myself and the form of a dwarf.
As you wish, my queen.
If you can't pull the magic rope, I can stay as a dwarf until the next full moon. Do not fail me, Dunkov.
Hela drank a sip of her potion and began to wait excitedly. When she saw that nothing happened, she took another sip and another sip. And all of a sudden, there was dust and smoke. Through the smoke, the evil Hela had finally appeared as a dwarf.
Wow, my queen, I can't believe my eyes. You're...
Now I'm going to Snow White's castle, Dunkov. Don't miss the full moon.
Yes, my little mini tiny queen.
What?
Sorry, my great, high, tall queen.
Hela set off to the country's most majestic castle. Since she was not used to being this short, even a bird flying overhead frightened the evil queen.
How these 7 dwarves are living fearlessly in the forest, I'll never understand.
After moving along the forest road for a while, Hela finally arrived at the castle. She also managed to enter the castle secretly, without being seen by anyone. She sneaked along the corridor of the castle and got to where the royal crown was kept. Seeing the crown, her eyes brightened.
Here I found you, my precious invisibility crown.
The evil Hela wore the crown without wasting any time, so she slowly disappeared.
I knew it would work.
Hela came out of the castle invisibly. Meanwhile, she encountered Snow White and the 7 dwarves, who were spending time in the castle's garden. Of course, nobody realized that Hela was there.
Before night, I better go to my cave and return to my old self.
Just then, the royal crown got caught on the branch of a tree in the castle's garden, but Hela didn't feel it. Because of this, the dwarf Hela became visible to everyone. But before she realized it, Snow White saw her.
Hey, stop there. Who are you?
Another dwarf?
She looks somewhat familiar, but who?
When Hela heard what was said, she stood where she was for a moment. She checked her head with her hand and realized that the crown was not on her head.
Huh? My royal crown!
Snow White rushed towards the crown, hanging on the tree branch. Hela, who realized the situation, immediately climbed the tree.
No, it's Hela. She's turned herself into a dwarf like us. Repulsive.
While Snow White was just about to touch the crown, Hela moved faster and took the royal crown. She quickly got it on her head, so she became invisible again and disappeared.
Oh no! Where are you, Hela? I know it's you who did this. Give me back my royal crown!
Snow White kept running around, not seeing where Hela was. However, Hela had already left the castle's garden.
My princess, Hela must be gone by now.
But she stole our crown. What are we going to do now?
It got very dark as Hela was moving fast from the forest road towards her cave.
With these dwarf feet, I won't be able to get to the cave soon enough. I hope Dunkov can manage to pull the magic rope in time.
As the full moon slowly showed up in the sky, Dunkov immediately went to the magic rope that Hela said. But the rope was so high, Dunkov could not pull it.
Yeesh. Oh, was the rope always this high? Up! Oh, grow little legs. Oh, my back. Oh, my back. Oh, no. Oh no, I'm gonna miss the deadline.
After a few hours, Hela finally reached her cave and saw that Dunkov still could not pull the magic rope.
Ouch.
No! You idiot! I'll be a dwarf until the next full moon!
I'm sorry, my queen, but my height just wasn't enough.
Then how will my height be enough? Ow! Ugh. Ugh. Ah.
Hela remained as a dwarf until the next full moon because of her dangerous magic. When evil people do something evil, they never get good in return. Because goodness only lives in good hearts. Snow White and the Witch Potion. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was an evil queen named Hela. She used to be much taller, but not long ago, she stole the invisibility crown from Snow White, and her evil spell backfired. And her overly loyal servant, Dunkov, came to Hela with a huge magic book.
Aha! Listen, my queen. The ingredients are as follows.
I hope this is the right spell, Dunkov, because I cannot wait until the next full moon to recover.
A pinch of white hair, a pair of stinking shoes, some baked pine gum, and lots of sparkling llama spit. And then there's the toe jam of a loyal servant. I think I can provide that.
Ew, what disgusting materials are these? This must be your own recipe, Dunkov.
Oh, wait, my queen. This book says it will definitely work.
Those ingredients will either make me smaller or dumber, Dunkov.
Oh, I don't know about that. It's not made me any dumber or shorter.
Hela's plan had been to destroy Snow White's beauty by stealing the invisibility crown from her. But to her embarrassment, she destroyed her own beauty, but she still had the crown. Snow White and the 7 dwarves decided to recover the stolen crown from the evil Queen Hela. They were quite determined.
But, Princess, Hela might use the invisibility power of the crown to thwart our plan.
I know, angry dwarf. That's why I won't go to Hela's cave alone.
We will come with you too.
No way, my friends. This is very dangerous. Only me and the wood nymph will go there.
Snow White said goodbye to the dwarves and hit the road with the wood nymph. Meanwhile, the evil Hela sought out other evil witches to help her undo the spell and grow back to her original size.
Dunkov, when I'm gone, just keep the cave dark. I don't want anyone to see my crown.
Yes, my queen. I can protect the crown even in the dark.
Hela set out in her tiny form to seek help from other witches. After a while, 3 witches met in the secret room of the evil sorceress Xena, who was a pastry cook in the city. However, when Hela entered the room, the other witches could not contain themselves and started laughing.
What happened? What are you laughing at? We didn't expect you to look so funny, Hela. I always wondered if anyone still messed up their spells, but I didn't think it would be you, Hela.
Although Hela was embarrassed by the witches' mocking, she tried to hide her hurt feelings.
You've got to take big risks for big rewards, witch sisters. Rewards like the magic invisibility crown. What?
Do you have the invisibility crown?
Yes, of course. What did you think?
When the evil sorceresses, Xena and Camilla, heard that Hela had the invisibility crown, they stopped mocking her.
Well, we have just the right spell to undo the damage, my sweet Hela.
And maybe one day we'll need you to return the favor.
The evil witches went to the cauldron and began to prepare a potion for Hela. Meanwhile, Snow White and the wood nymph arrived at Hela's cave and sneaked quietly inside. It was so dark that they couldn't see where they were going. So the wood nymph flapped her magical wings and spread out some lighted fairy dust. Thanks to the light of the nymph, Snow White saw Dunkov snoring right next to the invisibility crown. Snow White took tiny steps and gently took the royal crown. But just as she took the crown, the magic gong in the cave began to ring very loudly. Snow White was startled and dropped the crown.
Oh no!
Just as the crown was about to hit the ground, the wood nymph used her power of light to catch it. Even with all that noise, Dunkov never woke up.
I can't believe it! How did he sleep through all that?
As the wood nymph and Snow White sneaked out of the cave, Hela and the other witches were finally finished with Hela's recovery potion.
Hela, you will now be able to go back to normal whenever you want, and also you can be a dwarf whenever you want to use the crown. Now you won't have to wait for the full moon every time. But in exchange for this potion, you must also share the invisibility crown with us. Otherwise, you cannot use this potion.
Although Hela did not like this offer from the witches, she accepted. But just when she was about to drink the potion, they warned her.
Stop! Look, you're about to make another big mistake. This potion isn't for drinking. You're supposed to pour it over your hair.
While Hela poured the potion over her head, the witches spoke the magic words.
Hela up, potion down. Hela up, potion down.
And Hela was finally back to normal. Ah, ooh, you made it! Yes, hooray! Hela up, potion down, yeah! Hela was so pleased to be back in her original shape that she could finally use the invisibility crown. She set off immediately to return to her cave.
Don't forget to bring the crown to us.
Ah, yes, okay. Witches up, potion down. Snow White and the wood nymph had already taken the royal crown and arrived at the castle by the time Hela returned to the cave.
Good job, Snow White.
We did it, my dwarves. I got my royal crown again. Meanwhile, back at the cave, the evil Hela could hear the magical alarm and saw that the crown was missing. She became very mad.
No! My invisibility crown has been stolen, Dunkov!
Dunkov's hearing must have been going because he didn't even hear her while he was asleep and continued to snore. Hela sat on a stone helplessly and brooded. The royal crown has finally returned to its owner. The kind-hearted Snow White and all her friends were now very happy.
Good job, Snow White.
The evil Hela never realized that stolen blessings are never a blessing at all and only bring bad luck.
I will destroy you at all costs, Snow White.
Snow White and the Little Piggy. Once upon a time, a girl who loved to dance was living in a land far, far away. Her name was Snow White. On a sunny day, Snow White saw a little piggy while walking through the forest. This little piggy clearly looked like he had lost his way. So Snow White went to help him.
Huh?
Hello, little piggy.
Oh, who are you? Stay away from me.
Don't be afraid, little piggy. I am Snow White. I'd never hurt you.
Little by little, Piggy came out from behind the tree where he was hiding.
Oh, Snow White, can you help me?
Yes, of course I can. Tell me what happened first. How did you get here?
I went out this morning to play games, but I was so immersed in the game that I did not even realize that I was far from home. Then I was trying to go back to my house. A grasshopper jumped on me. It kept making noise right in my ears. I hurried and jumped up and down to get rid of him, and I kept running. Finally, the grasshopper jumped away, but I got stuck in the middle of the forest. I've been searching my way home for hours, but I guess I'm lost. My brothers must be worrying about me. Snow White, please help me.
Snow White said to the little piggy that she would help him find his home. And they set out together.
Tell me, Piggy, what's near your house?
Well, there are huge trees.
There are huge trees all over this forest. Are there any more specific landmarks near your home?
There is a lake with lush green water near our house.
There are lots of green lakes in this forest. I wonder which one.
Oh, I don't know that.
Well, Piggy, don't worry. We'll search all the lakes one by one to find your home.
Snow White and the little piggy walked through the forest for a while, and then arrived at a lake with lush green water. There were water lilies on the water and long reeds around it. But the little piggy was sorry to say that his house was not near this lake.
Oh, phooey. We will never find my home.
The piggy was very upset. So he picked up a stone from the ground and threw it into the lake. But suddenly, an enormous giant frog jumped on them from inside the lake. Snow White barely rescued the piggy, who was almost trampled under the huge frog.
Which of you threw the stone at my house?
Sorry, giant frog. We were just looking for this little piggy's home.
Then go to the lake with boats not too far away. Pigs love to roam there.
Snow White and the piggy immediately went to the edge of the lake that this giant frog had talked about.
Let's look around, Piggy. Maybe we're close to your house.
Although Piggy was sniffing around the lake for a while, he couldn't find his home. And he started to cry loudly.
My home. I want my home.
Hush, calm down, little piggy. Don't cry.
The piggy was crying so loudly that a giant red fish jumped out of the lake onto the land and nearly squashed the piggy. Snow White barely saved him again.
What's all this noise? My afternoon nap is ruined.
When the piggy saw the angry fish before him, he hid behind the princess in fear.
Sorry, dear fish. We're looking for this lovely piggy's lakeside home.
Then go to the lake with the dock. There's a mud pool there. Pigs love mud.
The red fish jumped back into the lake, and Snow White and the piggy walked towards the lake with Pier. After a while, Snow White saw a few mud footprints on the ground.
Piggy, look at the footprints on the ground.
These might be my brothers.
Snow White and the piggy started wandering around the lake with hope. And finally, they found the piggy's house.
Here's my home.
When they saw the little piggy back home, the pig brothers ran and hugged him.
We were very worried about you, little brother. Where'd you go? If you only knew what trouble a grasshopper brought on me. But I could never have found my way home without Snow White. Thank you, my princess.
From now on, you should learn the way home and know very well what's around, little piggy. Promise?
Pigs promise.
As the three piggies were reunited, they had fun all day in the mud in front of their house. They even brought Snow White in this fun. The little piggy was very lucky to meet Snow White that day. Because in this land, kind-hearted princesses always help animals and people.
One day, the curious dwarf and the grumpy dwarf were digging in the mine. The curious dwarf was working hastily as usual. Grumpy, on the other hand, was very uncomfortable with Curious's messy work.
Hey, can you slow down a bit? Oh, look! Do you see? What's that glowing there?
The curious dwarf dug with his shovel and brought out a small crimson stone. And the grumpy dwarf began to cough in the dust.
Look what you've done! Your curiosity causes trouble every time! This stone. What is this stone for? I don't know, and I don't want to know either! I wish I'd never come to the mine with you!
Curious was very upset by what Grumpy had said. He took the red stone and left the mine. On the other hand, the evil queen Hela noticed red lights coming out of the globe in her cave. When she went to look at it, she saw the stone in the curious dwarf's hand. Huh? A power stone! I cannot believe my eyes!
What? What'd you say, ma'am?
Get ready, Dunkov. We're going to get what's mine! The curious dwarf noticed smoke coming out of his pocket as he made his way through the forest. As soon as he put his hand in his pocket and touched the stone, he was so hurt.
Ouch! Ow! Ah! I have a burn! Ow!
That he threw the stone from his hand because the stone was too hot for Curious to hold. At that moment, evil Hela appeared next to the stone, and she took the warm stone in her hand with great composure. You took the trouble to bring this precious stone to me?
But that stone is mine! I found it!
It's mine now! Oh, this is a powerful stone and can only be held by a strong person. It means nothing to a weak and frail dwarf like you. Hela suddenly disappeared with the power stone in her hand, and the curious dwarf went to Snow White in fear. Snow White was very surprised to see the dwarf in a hurry.
Calm down, please, Curious. Tell me one by one what happened.
Today, I found a power stone in the mine, and Hela came and took it from me. She can do a lot of evil with this stone very soon, my princess. I'm so sorry.
Of course we'll find a way to stop her. Curious, come with me. At that time, Hela and her assistant, Dunkov, were chasing evil plans in the dark cave.
Marta, Norta, Norta, Morta!
As soon as Dunkov read the spell, sparks came out of the Power Stone and surrounded Dunkov.
Ow! I burned! Ouch! Ouch! Morta, torta, zorta, corta! Help me, my queen!
Get out of here, you incompetent! You can't read anything properly. Amarto norsa, azaro nosta. The moment Hela read the spell, a crimson light was reflected in the cave. Because the evil queen has created a huge volcano a little far away.
You did it, my queen! You are such a good wizard! Now let's throw the dwarves and the princess one by one into the volcano!
It's almost time for me to become the most beautiful woman in the world, Dunkov. No one will be able to surpass my beauty anymore. Meanwhile, Snow White and the curious dwarf, who were climbing the mountain, finally reached Hela's cave. As soon as they saw the red stone floating in the air in front of them, Hela appeared right behind them. I've been waiting for you too. Where are the other 6 dwarves? I will need them too. Aren't you tired of doing evil, Hela? You cannot harm us. Hela raised her hands and called out to the cave snakes. My servants, come and embrace these guests. Cave snakes that appeared out of nowhere surrounded Snow White and the curious dwarf.
Ah! Help! My arms! I can't move!
Hela! Tell your snakes to let us go now! They hurt us! With the magic of the Power Stone, Hela sent Snow White and the curious dwarf to the erupting volcano mountain. Meanwhile, Grumpy, who could not find the curious dwarf anywhere, went to the Ace dwarf.
Ace, I did something very bad. I hurt Curious with my words. I looked everywhere for him to apologize, but I couldn't find him. Grumpy, you know, we have to be very careful what we say when we are angry. I am very sorry. I will never say bad words again. Maybe he went to Snow White's palace. Let's go check.
Snow White and the curious dwarf were terrified when they looked at the hot lava slowly approaching from the volcano. Thanks to this Power Stone, soon you and your beauty will disappear from this world, Snow White. Even if I disappear, the evil in your heart will always remain there, Hela. You'll never experience beauty with that darkened heart of evil. Come on, my servants. Carry the guests into the lava! Hela has given orders to the cave snakes. Just when the snakes were about to throw Snow White and the dwarf into the lava, Dunkov got afraid of the sparks coming towards him and fell towards Hela. Hela's Power Stone also rolled towards Snow White. The princess has barely picked up the Power Stone. Thanks to this, the color of the stone suddenly changed from red to green. Oh, no! My Power Stone! With the power of the stone turning green, the snakes glided over the princess and the curious dwarf. Snow White caught Hela with the light coming out of the Power Stone and imprisoned her power in the stone. Hela tried to cast magic with her hands without realizing what was happening, but she had no power anymore. Oh! My powers! You destroyed them! No way! I can't do anything like that! The important thing is to be happy and live with the beauties of life, even without the powers. Hela, don't forget that. Snow White used the green power stone to calm the lava overflowing from the volcano. Later, they returned to the palace with the curious dwarf. The other dwarves, who welcomed them with great joy, were also very happy. On the other hand, the evil queen Hela could never understand that she will get the right results when she uses a power only for good, not for evil.